Gene Hackman, a name forever etched in Hollywood's history. With multiple Oscars and countless iconic roles, he seemed untouchable. Then, unexpectedly, he vanished from the public eye. Many stars staged triumphant farewells, but Hackman slipped away without fanfare, prompting one resounding question: why? Beyond that, when he finally passed, his unassuming lifestyle in Santa Fe suddenly collided with an astonishing truth. He'd left behind a fortune worth $80 million and a labyrinth of secrets that shook his family to its core. For some, the story ends at legend. For those who shared his name, the reality was a tangle of hidden bank accounts, unsent letters, and unanswered questions. This is the saga of Gene Hackman's final act and the mysterious legacy that still unsettles everyone who thought they knew him. Throughout a storied career, Gene Hackman proved himself as one of the most versatile actors of his generation. From gritty crime dramas to nuanced character studies, he delivered performances that dazzled critics and fans alike. His retirement, however, was as silent as it was abrupt. In 2004, after wrapping what would be his final film, Hackman stepped off the set and never looked back. No lavish parties, no grand announcements, just a slow retreat into the desert air of New Mexico. In addition, while many colleagues tried to coax him back with new scripts and lucrative offers, he dismissed every proposal. Rumors circulated that he'd grown weary of the spotlight. Others suggested he was nursing health problems he wished to hide. Even so, nobody imagined that the man who once ruled Hollywood would leave with so little fanfare. If cameras occasionally spotted him biking along the back roads near Santa Fe, he offered only a courteous nod, then carried on, keeping reporters and fans at arm's length. It wasn't merely about privacy. Hackman's departure hinted at a deeper restlessness. As he vanished from the red carpets, he also cut communication with many who once shared his orbit. Some chalked it up to exhaustion after decades of relentless work. Others suspected that a hidden fear drove him into seclusion. Either way, his exit marked the beginning of a mystery that would unravel only after his final day. When Hackman passed, Hollywood took only mild notice at first. He had been out of the limelight for years, and there seemed little reason for a massive media storm. However, curiosity ignited the moment his estate started to surface. He'd maintained a relatively modest public persona in Santa Fe. His will even listed the house, an old car, and not much else, amounting to around $5 million. Then again, whispers grew louder when old files revealed something far grander beneath the surface. After estate lawyers and private investigators dug into obscure documents, they unearthed evidence of hidden bank accounts, shell companies, and real estate dealings across several states. These assets tied back to a single intricate financial network that Hackman had begun building decades earlier. Step by step, it became clear that the venerable actor was worth several times the modest sum disclosed in his initial will. Furthermore, tracing each transaction proved nearly impossible. Hackman's knack for privacy extended into complex financial maneuvers. Swiss bank accounts and offshore trusts bore cryptic names, leaving no direct clue to Hackman's identity, except that on closer inspection, they all looped back to him. Investigators followed a paper trail that zigzagged through multiple countries, illuminating a cunning strategy to remain hidden. For his family, this revelation felt like a thunderbolt. Why would a man who occasionally surprised them with lavish gifts and tuition checks also conceal a massive fortune? Did he fear legal battles, or was he protecting them from something? As the numbers climbed, the enigma deepened. It wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and a man determined to ensure that no one ever saw all of his cards. Behind Hackman's cool exterior lay a complicated personal history. He'd married Faye Maltz in the late 1950s, a partnership lasting 3 tumultuous decades. During that time, he rose from a struggling actor to an Academy Award winner, but the family paid a heavy price. His children, 3 in total, grew up watching their father grace magazine covers and walk red carpets, yet rarely shared a dinner table with him. Beyond that, rumors of emotional distance ran rampant. One of his daughters, Elizabeth, once recounted a childhood where she felt like a stranger in her own home, overshadowed by her father's demanding schedule. His son, Christopher, likewise expressed frustration over how Hackman was more dedicated to his roles than to family milestones. Although Hackman's success showered them with financial stability, the emotional connection remained elusive. Later, his second marriage to Betsy Arakawa stirred further tensions. At first glance, it seemed like a new lease on life. Hackman had found solace with a woman 30 years his junior. However, any hope of mending old family bonds quickly dissolved. Christmas gatherings grew rare, phone calls dwindled, and time seemed to carry Hackman further from the children he once claimed to treasure. When he announced his retirement from Hollywood, many assumed he was simply done with the industry, but in reality, he was withdrawing from nearly everyone. Then, in the wake of his death, discovering a hidden $80 million nest egg felt almost like a betrayal. To his children, it signaled that their father had meticulously planned an entire financial world to which they'd never been invited. The shock of learning he had so much and told them so little drove a wedge that had already been splitting for years. As confusion brewed, the family and their lawyers dove into Hackman's personal effects, unboxing old letters, diaries, and notes. These uncovered items soon became the missing puzzle pieces to understanding a man they thought they knew. In one dusty trunk, they found a stack of letters addressed to each of his children. Many were dated from pivotal points in Hackman's life, just after winning an Oscar or in the middle of a difficult shoot, yet not one had ever been mailed. Moreover, the tone of these letters ranged from remorseful to wary. Hackman often lamented the gulf between father and child, admitting he didn't know how to bridge the gap. One note apologized for prioritizing his career over birthdays and family dinners. Another expressed fear that if he let them too close, his fame would somehow burden their lives. He believed by keeping them at a distance, he was sparing them from the harsh scrutiny he faced daily. Diaries revealed deeper layers. Hackman wrote about elusive old debts he needed to clear, hinting at deals or promises made during his climb up the Hollywood ladder. He referenced fear that they'd come for me, though he never specified who they were. An additional entry chronicled the stress of juggling public adoration with a private guilt that gnawed at him for neglecting those he claimed to love. Page after page, the diaries painted a picture of a man caught between longing for connection and an overpowering need for secrecy. What's more, a separate folder contained elaborate financial documents tracking hush money and discreet gifts to individuals no one in the family recognized, former assistants, old acquaintances, even a family friend from decades earlier. These transactions proved Hackman had spent years funneling money through clandestine channels. Yet the reasons remained murky. Was it generosity, payoff, or an extreme attempt at privacy? Each letter and diary entry only raised new questions. The entire family stood in stunned silence, realizing Gene Hackman's greatest acting role might have been the carefully orchestrated persona he maintained off-screen. As more emerged from the dusty archives, the truth of Hackman's existence became increasingly stark. On camera, he thrived, exuding authority and confidence in each performance. Off camera, he was a man wrestling with insecurities, guilt, and the suffocating burden of living in a spotlight he could never fully escape. Meanwhile, the family wrestled with conflicting emotions: anger, sorrow, even reluctant compassion. Christopher, the eldest son, revealed that he once admired how seriously his father took acting until he realized those fierce work habits often left no space for family. Elizabeth broke down reading letters that apologized for an absence Hackman claimed he couldn't overcome. She wondered if the father she remembered, a distant figure lost in his own thoughts, had known how to express love any other way. Beyond all that, the $80 million fortune loomed in the background, complicating every memory. Such a massive estate could have been a unifying gift, something to heal old wounds, yet it felt more like a cruel joke. The layers of secrecy reinforced the idea that Hackman trusted no one, not even blood relatives, to navigate the complicated legacy he'd built. Then, allegations circulated regarding old Hollywood connections and unsavory ties. Some diaries hinted at powerful figures in the film industry who'd manipulated or threatened him. Whether these entries were exaggerations or genuine concerns remained unclear. All the family had were broken hints on pages filled with half-finished sentences and frantic scrawls, referencing nightmares he hoped retirement would erase. The price for decades of fame, it seemed, was an unending sense of paranoia and a compulsion to shield his loved ones, even if it meant pushing them away. Ultimately, the family realized that while the world adored Gene Hackman for his roles on the big screen, he'd paid for that adoration with a secret life and a disintegrating bond with his children. When the family finally gathered in a lawyer's office for the official reading of Hackman's will, they discovered just how far his need for control extended. Stringent clauses warned against exploiting his name for tell-all stories, while stiff penalties threatened anyone who tried to contest certain terms. It was as if, even in death, Hackman refused to relinquish the directorial seat of his own narrative. Yet a surprise lay hidden in an addendum. Documents unveiling a substantial charity initiative labeled The Other Gene, funded by an initial $10 million and set to grow through future royalties from his film library. Hackman's diaries indicated a longing to help disadvantaged youth, perhaps a nod to the modest upbringing he endured before his stardom. In these pages, he described being the kid with tattered shoes and a dream he never thought would come true, vowing to give someone else the chance he almost missed. On top of that, letters to the charity's trustees revealed a more compassionate Hackman than most people, even his children, had ever seen. He wrote about wanting to start over in anonymity, fantasizing about a world where he wasn't iconic, just free. It was a stark contrast. The father who starved his family of emotional warmth somehow found it in himself to anonymously help others on a grand scale. Elizabeth and Christopher were torn. They recognized genuine kindness in these gestures, but still grappled with the sting of his secrecy. How could the same man who neglected his children's milestones muster the foresight to aid strangers? As they sifted through documents and diaries, they realized the father they judged so harshly was also a wounded soul who never found a proper way to heal. Today, Gene Hackman is remembered by fans for his legendary performances, a Hollywood titan who left an indelible mark on film. Yet, behind every glowing tribute lies a hidden chapter, one that reveals a profound loneliness and a torrent of regrets. His children, now grown, stand in the aftermath of a puzzle they might never fully solve. A father's dual life, part cinema royalty, part self-imposed recluse. Above all, Hackman's $80 million estate remains emblematic of the man himself, a fortress crafted to keep the world out. The diaries, letters, and labyrinthine finances paint a picture of someone determined to maintain absolute control over how he was seen, even in death. This approach shielded his legacy from exploitation, but also shattered precious opportunities for genuine human connection. In the end, the question echoes: was Gene Hackman a benevolent actor driven by guilt, or a distant patriarch paralyzed by fear? Perhaps he was both. He loved through financial gestures, hid from emotional entanglements, and carried scars he felt powerless to share. For a legend of his stature, the biggest role he ever played was simply Gene Hackman, the man who gave the world unforgettable characters, but left his own family grasping for a way to understand him. Even now, the diaries linger in a dimly lit study, filled with scribbles and heartache. The charity he founded flourishes in quiet corners of America, educating children who might otherwise be lost. And somewhere in those New Mexico hills, his presence still resonates, a reminder that sometimes the greatest stories aren't the ones played out under Hollywood's glare, but the ones tucked away in the letters we never send.